Hello, everybody.
You guys get started. I have to go help the cat with something really quick.
What is our cats doing? Hello and welcome to CLCI Live. Before we begin, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Interact with us. Ask us questions as well. If you're here because you were in Coaching 101 today and you're here because I told you to, also hello. And we love your questions and interactions. Last week, we or not, I don't know if it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Can't
Clients.
remember. We were talking about clients 101 and indecisive clients. We're done with that. We're doing self-sabotage 101, which is really still about clients. But self-sabotage 101, do the masks we wear hurt us?
So are we, when we ask that question, are we saying that wearing a mask or masking is self-sabotage?
Yes.
I think it can.
Are we sabotaging ourselves by
I
wearing
think it can
masks?
be, yeah, on like in ways we don't realize, like or think about, like because we're like essentially like saying that parts of ourselves and who we aren't good enough in certain situations to be shared.
So these aren't literal masks, these are metaphorical masks.
Yes,
so,
metaphorical masks. I was looking for my actual Mardi Gras mask, but I think Cambria ran off with it.
So we're going to need one of us to wear a mask for this thumbnail for this.
Oh, yeah.
But so I guess what we're saying is when a client wears a mask, we all wear masks, but when a client specifically wears a mask, perhaps that mask is getting in the way of their true goals or who they really want to be.
I suppose, yes. But I don't think we've really defined what we mean by masks, right? Like that we've sort of jumped ahead here.
It's not short for masculine. M-A-S-K.
It's not.
Although that can be a form of masking,
Yeah.
Could be. But that's not what we're referring to in this specific moment.
So what is masking?
Not presenting your true self. That one of the examples that our research gave were actors, right? Actors who change their name so that they can be the actor over here, but be the private citizen with their real name.
Yeah, like if my name was Margaret Zippity Doodah Mary, like
Rochester.
Yeah, whatever it might be, that's hard to spell and say. So I might change my name to fit in better in and make it, Mary Smith, because then people will be able to say my name.
But is that really masking, or is that just?
I think it's like it can be though, because like if you're doing it because let's say I am, I think there was a kind of a good example is like The Rock might be a good example. There was a long time where The Rock didn't share what nationality he was, like not even nationality, what like
if he was sedimentary or
no, like what race he was essentially.
That was funny, Anthony. Sorry, hang on a second. That was really funny.
I thought it was pretty clever, but
and he did that on purpose, and his name was neutral, and he did that on purpose because he wanted to be able to be cast more universally and didn't want to be like pigeonholed into specific roles based on his ethnicity. There we go. And so he went with a more neutral, but the other flip side of the coin is people can say, well, that is you're denying who you are in your race at that point. And that's, that is sad that you have to do that in order to get cast in more roles and do better as an actor, be more successful as an actor. And it shouldn't have to be that way. Because there was something in that he was like, I have to deny this part of myself in order to be more successful in what I would like to do for a living. So it is to some degree. I mean, it does feel like a very kind of like it could be meaningless, but it can also have a maybe deeper and more far-reaching impact. And I think that is something that we're finding now, especially as, and I think it's important too to talk about like the difference between like mental health masking and neurodivergent masking, and then like the masking everybody does, right? But like I think as like it's becoming more accessible, like people are being diagnosed as neurodivergent, women more than ever. And the reason that women are being diagnosed late with things like ADHD and autism is because women are really good at masking and like they are raised essentially to learn you need to mask those symptoms, you need to calm down those symptoms, and so it becomes this very internal struggle that they go through, and they're taught not to express it because they need to be normal and feminine and demure and not cause problems, whereas with guys it's a little more acceptable that they are rambunctious and bounce off the walls. You know what I mean? Like
Perhaps we're just masking something with our rambunctious behavior.
So women have just become very good at masking, and that's why they're finding out later in life. There's a lot more late diagnosis in ADHD and autism in women.
So are we coming at this conversation from the perspective that everyone masks at some point in some way? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
I think so.
We all do.
If it was my natural disposition to be a swearer and an ornery kind of person, that's not going to go far, in company, right? People are going to be abrasive towards the reception I present and not want to be around that. So in a mask, perhaps I tone that down and I don't swear and I don't come off as a jerk, right? So those, like Anthony is.
Like if you could see Anthony playing video games versus like Anthony everywhere else in the world. You're like totally different people, you guys.
Video games is also when I do most of my improv and my voice acting. Yeah. So I'm also
it's a different mask he's wearing there too, because he's like entertaining. Like he is turning on this entertainment side of himself that like cranking it up that doesn't come out elsewhere.
You know what I was gonna say though? You know who doesn't mask at all ever is babies. Babies don't mask.
No, they don't. It's a learned thing.
Themselves. They're not masking. Everything else, as you become a child and you're older, you start to mask up a little bit, and then once you're, really.
You don't know how many times, like on an airplane,
use the mask again.
Like on an airplane, a baby is screaming because they are miserable, and I'm just wishing I could do the same thing. Like I would probably feel so much like that baby is getting it off that baby's chest and getting what it needs, because it's just like, and I'm like, okay, well, I feel the same. Like I want somebody comfort me. I'm gonna scream, but I don't. I keep it all in.
Wait, does Anthony live stream? Can I no?
Yeah, absolutely. If I were to live stream me playing video games, I would have to wear a mask and really censor myself.
This is intriguing. I like it.
It can be a little insane sometimes, but my friends also goad me on. So
to the point that I'll like have to shut like multiple doors just to like.
But what we're talking about, if you want to put it in Freudian terms, is the superego.
Yeah.
And parts of the ego. It's like the stuff we're conscious of and we actively do to create an identity in certain situations, which made me want to go, when we started this conversation, we're talking a lot in the metaphors. Metaphors are great. I love the metaphors, but let's be more literal, because we're using masks as a metaphor. When do people literally wear masks, and why do they literally wear masks? Like what purpose does that serve?
You mean a physical mask or
like a physical mask on
Mardi Gras?
A masquerade party?
Yeah.
A raid?
Rob banks.
Yeah, raid.
When I'm snowboarding.
Well,
the year 2020 and
Oh, there
2021.
you go, Jen. That's a good one.
Oh,
Lisa
whoa.
mentioned to hide who you are, to hide your identity.
Mm.
That's one reason why we literally wear masks.
Yeah.
The other is to become a new identity, like in acting.
Like,
People wear
yeah, well,
masks.
yes. When I was a scare actor, I would wear masks or
Yeah,
makeup.
you'd wear a monster mask to be really ugly and scare people, but it's to
I wear
serve.
masks when I will not mask, but I'll wear full body face makeups when I'm modeling under the water because I want to embody a different character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Masks to protect us,
Mhm.
such as masks during COVID-19, or masks when we're scuba diving. It's to protect our face and nose,
Keep us warm.
warm, to protect us from the cold.
Yeah.
So we've nailed down three things. It's to conceal our identity. It's
Mhm.
to take on a new identity.
Mhm.
To protect ourselves.
Uh-huh.
Is there any other?
But a mask doesn't have to be to have a new identity. It might be to have our authentic identity.
In what way?
You know, if you wear a physical mask, you weren't able to be yourself before, but under this physical mask,
So like, okay, so like anonymity is what it would be.
I
Like,
have a friend. Yeah, I have a
because-
friend that is like largely an introvert, but when she puts on this like full body character suit, she is able to be an extrovert, and it's so cool to see like that side of her come out because she like without it, she kind of like it's like she balls up and is small, but then she puts that on and she becomes this like big, amazing human, and it's just this really cool transformation. And she can't do it without the suit because she's such an introvert. Yeah.
You know what I just realized in you sharing that? This is why I've always been obsessed with being a mascot because nobody knows who you are. And you can just literally be anything you want and you're loved for it because
Yeah.
nobody knows who's really in there. Yeah.
this I've already given my commentary to you on what I think is actually going on. with the
Yes,
masks.
I'm aware, and that is it's a bad take, Anthony. I'm sorry.
Jen's a furry. Just gonna put it out there.
But I do think that somewhere along the lines, I mean, I think a lot of this, like if we're gonna like, you know, the Freud, somewhere along the lines, we learn as people.
Oh,
I don't know.
Brooke's
We
back.
learn as people that either certain parts of us are shameful, or in certain situations, if I do this, this will happen. I think it is very much learned. Like this is a learned thing that comes from being social and socially interacting with people and our experience. And along the way, our experience teaches us that being a certain way in certain situations will have specific outcomes or a better possibility at certain outcomes. So then we do that. And sometimes, though, it's funny. I'm thinking about, I have a friend who was a total people pleaser. She's just like very much a people pleaser and kind of afraid to share like what's going on inside. And all I've been doing over the last like year is encouraging her to like let that side out, like, and just saying, you can, you should, you can. And she stated this recently, and she was like, oh yeah, I'm like, it's like the old lady who has lost her filter has begun with her, and it's just kind of funny, like, and it'll just come out now. It'll just come out, and like our friends are like, Brooke, we blame you for this, and I'm like, good.
Now I know who you're talking about. I should
Yeah,
watch
I'm just
out for
like,
that.
I've just been encouraging her like to be herself, and that she is going to be accepted, and that it is okay, and like that she doesn't need to worry about, you know, putting up all these protective walls and masks, and she can let it down and just be her, you know, whatever that is. And it's just fun to see this transformation sort of happening in her real time. I mean, it's a neat thing, and it, I feel like in some level it's can be sad, like when you get to that people pleaser place, when you get to that place where we just keep all of this, so much of ourselves down and quieted, because somewhere along the way we were told it wasn't good, you know, which isn't true. I mean, but then there is this element of social that we do. I mean, in the podcast one of the podcasts they listened to, they did talk about how like there is a such a thing as good masking, like that does exist.
Like when
not all bad.
So like when I mentioned that like the reason why we put on a mask is to take on a new identity, it's also to take on an archetype. So if you are the leader of a company, or let's say the leader of the free world, hypothetically, maybe sometimes it's good to wear a mask where you're a diplomatic and reasonable person. And if you take off that mask, then, maybe it's not so good for the job that you're trying to complete.
As coaches, we are highly masking when we are coaching.
Oh,
I feel like, I think especially in the start, like maybe it becomes more second nature, but like we have to be very adept at masking when you are coaching, because we are practicing a very specific way of communicating, and like you have to shut down like literal parts of your brain, or quiet, or put aside like that are there very naturally.
But hold on, this makes me think about our favorite coach, who's incredibly expressive, and he doesn't seem to mask at all when he's
me.
So
yes,
no.
It's just making me think about that. Like,
but I think it's just in one area though. Like he doesn't mask his facial expressions, right? He doesn't mask that emotion, and like.
But wait, could that be a mask though?
Well, no, I almost feel like that might be a result of having to mask all the other stuff going on. Like I feel like for him, it's probably a lot of work to quiet down what's in his head. And so it comes out through expression, right? Like, so like rather than saying all the things he could be saying, he's keeping it in through these very large expressions. So I almost feel like it might even be a little bit of as a result of having to mask and having to be the coach that he is expressing as much as he is.
He also, though, in my opinion, runs a risk that he's not masking enough to be neutral for most clients. Yeah, because I couldn't coach. I couldn't let him coach me. I'd be way too distracted.
But I dare say, perhaps he would be even crazier if he wasn't making those facial.
I feel like we have to add context for the viewers. No one knows what we're talking about.
I don't really want to add context, but there's something interesting that I'm noticing in the
hard pass.
We'll drop a link of the coach we're talking
We don't actually know if this person in question, or let's say people in general, are wearing a mask or not. And we might suppose this is how you actually are. This is your true identity, and you ought to wear a mask. And the other flip side of the coin is, oh, this person's wearing a mask. They have some other personality that maybe they should take off that mask and be more real, rather than fake. Well, I'm putting some judgment on that, but
we're like we're coming at this though in coaching, we are literally teaching you how to mask.
Yeah,
like we are. I agree. It is a literal teaching in masking. Mm-hmm. Like we are literally teaching you how to sit down and mask, and it is work. Like I think when I think about the amount of focus I have to come into, like this headspace I have to be in to be able to coach in the ICF model. There is a lot that has to go on for me to get into that headspace. That like I have to have a lot of things that it has to be quiet, I have to be calm, it have to be without distraction. I have to there are just lots of things that have to be in place for me to be able to
it's like you have to put on the blinders.
And I can't, that can like creep out in small ways while I'm out and about in the world, but I'm not in full coach mode when I'm out and about in the world, because that takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of focus that I may not be able to get. I mean, I couldn't do that at the grocery store. Yeah. And really like focus in and get into full coach mode in the middle of the grocery store. It would be really hard to do that. I can like maybe tip my toe in the water, but what's funny is I think about with coaching, it can be exhausting. I think that's why a lot of the reason that like coaches are not typically coaching 8 hours a day, like 8 clients a day. And I don't think any coach would schedule them 8-hour sessions in a row, because I think at the end of the day, that coach would be just completely wiped out. Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of shines a light on the fact that when you have to be in these headspaces where I am essentially compartmentalizing my thought processes, my personality, my emotions, my reactions, my movements, and when I have to do that, that requires more energy and more focus and can be tiring. And that is just one of the things, the sort of side effects that comes from masking, and having to do these sort of things. And I think that's important to acknowledge. Like the negative side effect doesn't have to be this like destructive, explodey self-sabotage, but it might just be that you're exhausted. At the end of the day, you feel exhausted, and it's because you spend the whole day not being able to be yourself, or pushing down parts of yourself that you maybe know are wrong to push down. Like that's probably the even worse. That's like the soul, when it gets soul draining, I would say, for sure.
Which we don't teach that part in being a coach. We're not draining your souls. We're masking in the good way, which is to be professional, mm-hmm. and to present an image where you are an adept coach.
Yeah.
And you're comfortable in the coaching space.
But I think part of that, why it becomes important for us as coaches to coach a client we are excited to coach. Mm-hmm. I think that is important, because if we had to get into this full coach mode space and then spend hours coaching clients that we weren't excited to coach, mm-hmm. or situations that weren't, energizing to us, or things like that, now that is going to become a situation that becomes very exhausting and potentially soul draining. Like, you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. So I think it is this important to find a space where you are excited about the area you are coaching in, or the people you are coaching. Yeah. For sure. And knowing who that person is, or that client is, or that space where you're like, I really come alive in this space. I really like coaching in this space. That is important.
What you're saying is actually, when I talk to a lot of people on the phone who are therapists, that is a lot of times why they are wanting to get certified in coaching and add coaching to their services that they offer, because they want to be able to work with people and topics and things that excite them. And so they want to add that to what they're currently doing.
Yeah. Because again, this is, when you're in a profession like this, it is a very giving profession, ultimately. Like you're holding space for the emotions of others. And in that, you're not allowed to be having your own emotion, having your own, you know what I mean? You're not
allowed to be selfish.
Yeah.
You can have your own emotion, but you're not allowed to be selfish or make that the priority, which
Yes,
can be exhausting. Yes. If it's done for long enough. It's like, oh my gosh, can I just sit with myself for a moment? At least that's how it feels for me. Maybe I'm speaking for myself.
No, I agree. You're allowed to feel. You're just not allowed to make the conversation about you and your feelings.
What you're feeling. Yeah.
That's what you do with your own coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's why we say it's so important for coaches to have support systems, so that when that coach mask comes off, they can go and be able to express their emotion, be able to express how they feel, be able to get all of that out and get the whatever they need to fill their cup, or their, what a vessel, so that they can come back and coach again and hold space for others.
Yeah.
So when looking at masks, we've established that it's done for a reason, whether for good or bad. It's to protect your identity, to be comfortable in your identity, to protect yourself, or to hide yourself. How do those turn into things that are now sabotaging? That if I have a goal in mind, they're now getting in the way, that they are actively working against me.
Well, I don't even think it necessarily has to be goal oriented, but like I can think of a lot of ways where, like, I have worked in situations that were like boys club situations, and the culture was to play down the fact that like the girl parts of me, like, you know what I mean, you know, there's a whole, like, if you want to be successful in, you know, the corporate world, for a long time masculinity has been the expectation. So that means like no emotion. That means, heaven forbid, you talk about periods or you know, things that might be going on in that space, because then immediately you get weaker. Or even your kids, for people, moms who have kids that are in the workplace, and I can't imagine how that would feel as a mother, like being told you're not allowed to talk about your kids or your family, and if you want to be successful like that, at that point, that would feel very much like, and if I'm living in that world, so let's say I'm abiding by that world and I have to go in every day and essentially hide and deny the fact that I am a mother in order to be successful, that could feel like a big cognitive, you know, dissonance moment, like a big disconnect, where I am proud of this, and then there's this other piece that just doesn't exist.
Is that self-sabotage, or is that
I
something
think it
else?
is if you're staying in that situation and not doing anything about it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Can be, yeah.
Another self-sabotage could be you're in a relationship, but you haven't really let yourself be yourself in the same manner that you're talking about in the workplace. You know, if you're in that relationship and you don't let your guard down and share who you are, and then you're in that relationship, let's just say 6 or 9 months later, and things start to peak out, and that co-partner in that relationship goes, whoa, who is this person?
All right, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But that's, the sad flip side of that is, like, yes, it would be wonderful if that person just showed it from the beginning, but I could see this pattern arising where I hide who I am for a very long time, and then I show who I am and I'm rejected by the people I love. And the flip side, the learned pattern that as a coach we might, you know, start to try to like shine a light on that. Maybe you know, hopefully, I mean, not going to say, but maybe they then come to the conclusion, I need to just show who I am up front, so that filter, you know, that process happens before I get attached, before I get in love, before I, you know what I mean? And that's the kind of space that I could absolutely see. The flip side of the coin too, which could be interesting, is you could have a person that is just, for whatever reason, just a total, you know, like just that person that is just abrasively honest, you know, like just like, and it is not working out for them, as it were. And so it might be a situation where you end up coaching them, and now they're coaching around learning to pause, learning to think through what they say, learning to find, you know, to essentially start to mask that gut shot response, and give it some time before they, you know, just blurt out the first thing on their mind.
It's not about shutting down their perspective. It's about adding to their perspective of ways to communicate so others can hear it, right? So it's masking the abrasive to highlight the way that we
What
can,
is important.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in a way that doesn't have to be abrasive, can still have kindness and care and concern built into the inner the exchange of information. You know, people will say, oh, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Well, how did that work out for you? You're dealing with other humans who aren't looking for sugarcoating, but they don't want somebody to beat them up over a situation, which is what it feels like when there's abrasive tones. Go ahead.
Well, and also the message might be lost in depending on how it's delivered, right? So like if you're coming off with an emotion, that might get an emotional response might be given right back. And so it's learning how to approach in a way that maybe whatever it is you were trying to communicate or convey is better received or heard by whoever it is you are conveying. I think also there's a coach question that just popped in my head we use all the time that kind of lives in this masking space, and it's that what are you in control of?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a powerful question for people to sit back and go, okay, what am I doing? How am I? Maybe it's, am I masking? Maybe is it, like, all of these things come up. And I think that question sort of relates almost directly to this topic of what mask am I wearing in a lot of ways.
I also like the question, who is that for? Like when you talk about the person, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Who is that for? Like, who are you not sugarcoating for? Because ultimately, I mean, that question could drive the person back to the fact that that's entirely self-serving and it's for them and it's for their ego. But it's a gentle way of, you're not saying that, you're simply, asking into it, giving space for new awareness to emerge.
You're not just saying, you're just excusing your
Right.
dick behavior.
Right.
Pardon my French.
You can say that to your client. It sounds
Because
like
it's
you're
easier.
just excusing your dick behavior.
For you to not care.
Now that's not sugarcoat.
How you say things.
Who is that for, and what does that give you once the reality of it being self-serving is revealed, which I'm not saying always is. Sometimes I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Might have its benefits. Depending, I'm trying to think of a time. Yeah, maybe there's times when not sugarcoating is the best call, but
Are there any other ways that, like, this concept of masking? I think we can take it to really extreme, like, it's real obvious when we get to the more extreme things, but are there any others, like, subtle ways that masking can be self-destructive? I like that we've talked about both, like, the good and the bad in this space, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's tremendously valuable, but where it can also be destructive.
For coaches, masking in marketing can be destructive.
Oh, good point.
Because if you market yourself, like, okay, if I market myself as very professional, that's not who I am. Yes, I am a professional coach. And yes, I am professional when we're in the coaching space. But that's it. That's the only place that I'm professional. In general, who I am in my life is not professional at all. And so
quite unprofessional.
Yes, I am.
So
I'm
myself.
extremely unprofessional in ordinary life. And so if I mask that in my marketing, I'm literally like selling someone a false bill of goods. What is that the saying? Did I make that up?
Yeah, false bill of sale.
Yeah.
Also might be you might be shooting yourself in the foot. You might end up in a situation where, like, oh, that mask works really well. Now you're forced to wear this mask to be successful in whatever way
your client's happy. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And the opportunities that might present themselves by me constantly masking, like, say I get some sort of professional speaking gig where they need me to be all polished and put together and, like,
Jen could never.
I mean, I could pull it off, but I wouldn't be super happy about it because it would be a full-on mask the whole time. It wouldn't be me having any freedom to actually express myself authentically.
And it probably would be a terrible and boring speaking gig. Honestly, I would be bored if you were just like.
It'd be fun to watch you try, though. Like knowing that's not the case. Brooke, you have to leave soon, right?
I do have to hop off.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I feel like I used to be a human being that, like, felt like life felt exhausting. Like, I all the time felt like I was had to be on. I had to be, you know, in my, like, this is former life, like former life. And then I kind of had this wonderful thing where I just self-destructed and everything kind of went to crap. And at that point, I felt like I had leveled everybody's expectation of me. And it was this wonderful, to what turned out at the time, it was really depressing and not what I wanted. And oh my God. But when I look back at it now, it kind of like gave me this freedom to just sort of figure out who I was and just be that person and sort of be that person unapologetically. And it became like this whole new learning process of who is Brooke now and who does Brooke want to be now and what do I want to take of who I am and nurture and feed and grow, and what do I want to let go of and not stress about anymore. And it is a much more authentic and relieving and calm and peaceful and self-accepting existence than I think of, you know, the me who is trying to prove herself all the time in her 20s. And there's just something so nice about like just breaking all of that expectation and then just getting to figure out who I am for me and not for
So
somebody
your
else.
advice is that clients need to hit rock bottom.
Not at all. I think that like essentially in that it's like this, like there's still a shift, and like that's not to say I don't mask, that's not to say I don't, you know, but what I think it did for me was and I don't think you have to get to that point, but I think you could chip away at it where you just start to ask yourself, like, who am I doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
How do I feel about the fact that I am behaving this way? Like, is this really serving me? Is this the best thing for me? Is this in line with who I am and what my values are? And when you find those spaces where that isn't true, or where you're just doing it for somebody else and not for yourself, or where it feels icky and wrong, you start to like shift away from those spaces, those people, those situations, those responses, interactions, whatever it may be. And I think that's really, you can do it in small pieces. Don't do it my way. My way was probably the worst way, but like, but I think you can do it in little ways along the way.
There are a lot of people that do it in the way that you did it. The pendulum was over here, and then it learned, and it went over here.
The other way. Yeah, you know,
and then it comes back to find that neutral
middle
place. Yeah.
And it was such a whiplash because I had been this like overachieving perfectionist, like always the best, the caretaker, the doing things for everybody. And then that person had to break. And when I broke, I just went whoosh, and then I was like selfish and bad and destructive. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to be that person. And then I found myself, that balance in the middle. So yeah. But I don't think everybody has to do that. You can do it in a smaller way.
I think it's pretty common though for people to swing and then finally pull back into the middle. I've done it with a lot of things personally. So.
All right, guys, I trust you to finish this off. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Jerome, we haven't heard much from you.
Yeah, no, I was actually gonna. I'm thinking about what Brooke just mentioned, and I feel like a lot of people pleasers fall victim to kind of that I guess way of moving when it comes to putting on masks. And I kind of put myself in her shoes, and I can think back to like college. I did a lot of that. I did a lot of masking when it came to just the different environments I put myself in. When it came to maybe like class, my girlfriend at the time, family, and my fraternity, all different masks. And it got so exhausting. And really what I realized what it was me trying to please the group that I'd put myself in or whatever setting I was in. And having graduated, I think still I do it. I do definitely still do it. But I think it's a lot easier to kind of just like what Brooke said. I'm not gonna lie, there was a pendulum that swung for me too, and I didn't know exactly. I had like a bit of an identity crisis. I'm like, who am I? Because I'm like, there's certain days where I'm sitting by myself and I'm like, this is who I am, and there'll be another day where I sit by myself and I'm like, this is a whole different person. And I guess really what it took was just some soul searching. I don't really know where it came from, but I do know it can be exhausting to put those masks on. Um, and maybe I'm not there yet. Who knows?
Well, what gave you the courage to start unmasking?
Um, really, I think it was graduation is what had happened. I graduated from school and then got into the real world and was job hunting, and that really was like kind of an eye-opening experience for me, where I was just like, I don't want to apply to a position again with another mask on and then have to be that person that I'm not for the entirety of my career.
That's
So
the expectation that you're setting for other people that you just meet.
Oh, I
exactly.
mean, that's a good example. Getting an interview, and you definitely wear a mask.
Yeah,
And
there was a
yeah.
there's a few positions where I did do that, and those jobs didn't last, and that was because there was one I can remember in particular. I was leasing apartments, and I've spoke about it before. I have a visceral reaction when it comes to like sales, like up close and personal sales, and that was not me. And that didn't last long because of the fact that I was putting a mask on, and I had to tell myself, this isn't you. You got to move away from this. And I'm fortunate to have CLCI because it's a much more comfortable space where I'm not trying to sell these apartments that I know some of these people can't even afford. It was
By
just
the way,
not a good
Jerome,
space for me.
we're gonna do a sales workshop with all of our friends so you can be a real slime ball
No,
and a used car salesman.
Jerome
I'm calling in sick that day. I'm not doing that.
Jerome is going to be the new lead sales
Yeah,
manager
that'll
at
work
CLCS.
just fine. Yeah, that's one way it could sabotage you. You're setting an expectation that you might end up regretting setting for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
And at
For
some
sure.
point, that mask has to come down because it's like an active process we're doing. At some point, you're going to slip, and someone's going to see behind the mask, and they might not like what they see because you've set that expectation.
Or worse, it can take literal years off your life, and you kind of just put yourself in a position where you don't even. Again, you can have a bit of an identity crisis. You lost years of trying to be this person that you aren't, and not developing who you actually are.
Yeah.
And it can be a scary thing.
Or even worse, like the Goosebumps story. What is that Goosebumps story?
Oh, is that the one where he puts his and it gets stuck
Yes.
to him? Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my mind. The haunted mask.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Wasn't that Carrie? Didn't he do the mask, or it did the same thing?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
there's
another
a
movie.
movie.
Carrie,
It's not-
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
It's a
really good
different story.
example. Yeah,
That
we
is
should.
a better example, probably. But
It ruined his life because he
Yeah.
had that. He was a whole different persona, but it wasn't actually him, and he was trying to use that mask and fit it into his life.
Yeah.
but the point I was trying
Well,
to
it's
make
the ring too. I mean, like, while it's not a mask, but the ring
Hmm.
did the same thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
what I was saying is that you might end up, and I don't really believe this. I don't really think that there's like a stable essence of your identity, who you really are. But if you wear a mask long enough, you might end up becoming that mask.
Yeah.
And that might be who you actually change into, for better or for worse. If you do it long enough, if you fake it till you make it long enough, you're going to end up becoming that thing. So you have to really be mindful of what mask you're wearing and how long you're wearing it for and how authentic it feels to you, because that might end up becoming the real you. You might not want that.
You remember
Or
the
you
saying?
might want it. Sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
Remember the saying? If you're making that face and you get hit in the back, you're gonna stay that way forever.
Your face is going to look that way forever. It's going to get stuck that way.
Yeah. Or you might want it, and it has to do with coaching. And that is, we teach you how to mask in a way that serves the client, in a way that allows the conversation to be client-centered. And at first it's like, oh my God, this is so different. This is not at all how I normally talk to people. And you just do it, and you become it. Because now, I mean, at least for me, when I get into the coaching space, it's just like, boom, that's who I am. And there's nothing that can shake me from that when I'm in the coaching space. I know exactly who I need to be for that client to have maximum benefit. And I'm happy to wear that mask.
I would say on the flip side of that too, as far as being a client is concerned, it's really nice to have that to be a part of your community to kind of check you. Like Anthony was mentioning, if you wear a mask for too long, that maybe isn't necessarily who you want to be, and no one's there to tell you, hey, you're kind of out of pocket here. A coach can help with that. Obviously close friends and family can help with that as well. I think that's just a really beneficial thing to have as a coach who can kind of say, hey, this is where you were a couple weeks ago. Now we're way over here. Are you sure this is the direction you want to move in? And it's just nice to have that check-in.
Or at least people in your life who can like peek behind the mask or know what you are in different contexts. I'm sure it's really funny. I think it's probably really funny to Brooke when I like pretend to be professional as if I was at CLCI, but with like outside of work, it's so clearly obvious that I'm like playing up a role versus when I'm on the phones with people, that's just how I'm expected to be. That's the expectations.
Well, but you're not friends with them. So is it a mask or is it just a...
Nope. I'm friends with every single person I call on the phone and who talks to me. I love them so much. And I very much enjoy talking to them. That's what I will maintain while we are on this live.
Yes.
So we rotate the masks that we wear.
Yeah.
Realistically.
I've got a mask on my back and a mask on the front, and
and sometimes they serve us. Sometimes they are useful, and sometimes they hold us back and sabotage us. Is that our overall take on masks?
Yeah. That's always our take. You don't have to watch the lives anymore. You can just read the title, and they'll be like, "Well, it's kind of both. We're not gonna go one way or the other. It's gonna be like it's useful sometimes, and it's not useful some other times."
That's every live.
And here's everyone's opinion. That's every live.
The end result's going to be.
Great.
The good stuff is the in between, though. It's why it isn't, always black and white.
That's true. That's true. The nuance is important to consider and explore.
We'll always explore and get into the nuance, and it's never going to be one or the other. We should find a topic that it's like,
straight yes or no.
That's black and white.
It doesn't exist. There's no way.
There will be. Giving clients advice.
That's a no.
Yeah.
Oh, now we're all black and white about it.
I could make an argument for asking the client permission to share and see what comes up for them. I absolutely.
You're beating around the bush. I mean, straight up, just saying.
This is what you should do. Yeah, no, that's a black and white. You never do that. You're not a coach if you're doing that. You're doing something else.
Which is why most of the time your family and friends don't fit in coach mode, because they're gonna straight up tell you
this is what you should do.
Yeah.
But you know what you should do if you're watching this live? Take coaching 101, 102.
Yes,
you should.
And mentoring.
And your performance evaluation, and getting a credential with the ICF. You should do all of that with us and no one else.
Yes, and right now we have 150 off to do that with us.
Yes, St. Patrick's Day.
Which is when? When is St. Patrick's? Monday?
Well, it's going on now, and there's no expiration date on.
Yes, there is.
The website.
The 20th.
It doesn't say it on the homepage. So forever now.
Oh no!
No, don't tell them that. No,
not forever. It will come down. And what date was that?
The 20th.
The 20th
of
is
March.
when we will stop with that sale. So you should absolutely jump on that sale. Take our classes. Learn to wear a mask as a coach in a way that benefits both you and your clients, and learn to take off the masks that don't benefit you or your clients. Any other final thoughts?
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next week.
I do have one final thought, and this helped me tremendously just as I was speaking about my past. If you ever feel yourself being exhausted, you got to ask yourself, this is a quote I heard, is if you ever feel yourself exhausted, you have to ask yourself, am I being myself? because if you aren't, usually that's taking a lot of energy out of you that you kind of aren't, you don't want to allow to kind of be dispersed. So that's my final thought. That helped me a lot. I think about it still a lot to this day. Hopefully that helps somebody else.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
love that.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next week. We'll have a different self-sabotage 101 topic, and we'll find some middle ground.
Cool.
So we'll see you guys then.
See you
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.